Stop. You haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Subscribe now. We have new stories every day. Now, let's go. Dr. Addison Rivera pressed his thumb against the elevator button for the 32nd floor. The metal box hummed as it ascended toward the penthouse suite he shared with his wife. 10 years of marriage. 10 years of building something he believed was unbreakable. After a 14-hour surgery that saved a 16-year-old boy's life, exhaustion wrapped around Addison's shoulders like a heavy coat. But he still stood straight in his tailored suit, his posture never betraying weakness. As one of Henford's premier cardiothoracic surgeons, he had built his reputation on precision, composure, and results. Failure was never an option, not in the operating room, not in his marriage, and not in life. The elevator doors slid open to reveal the hallway to their apartment. Addison adjusted his leather messenger bag and walked toward Unit 3201. The hallway was quiet, except for the soft sound of his Italian leather shoes against the marble floor. Every step was measured and controlled. He unlocked the door and stepped into their meticulously designed living space. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Henford's glittering skyline. Everything was exactly where it should be. The white sectional sofa pristine against the dark hardwood floors, the abstract art perfectly aligned on the walls, and the kitchen spotless. Addison had designed their life with the same precision he used in surgery. "Lauren," he called out, setting his bag on a marble-topped kitchen island. His wife appeared from their bedroom, looking every bit the trophy she presented herself as. Lauren Rivera, with her toned physique from thrice-weekly Pilates sessions, blonde hair falling in perfect waves, and a smile that had once made his heart stop. Now he mostly felt a comfortable familiarity. "You're home early," she said, crossing the room to kiss his cheek. Her lips barely brushed his skin. Addison nodded. "Victor took over the post-op care. Thought I'd surprise you." "That's nice." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Hungry? I can order something in." "Already ate at the hospital." He loosened his tie. "How was your day?" Lauren shrugged, her attention already drifting to her phone. "The usual. Lunch with Bethany. Shopping downtown. Nothing exciting." Addison watched her thumb scroll through social media. There was a time when she would have asked about his surgery, would have shown interest in the life he'd saved that day. When had they become so distant? "I'm thinking of taking a few days off next week," he said. "Maybe we could go to that vineyard in Brookfield you've been wanting to visit." This caught her attention. She looked up, eyebrows raised. "Really? You never take time off?" "Maybe it's time I did." He moved toward her, placing his hands on her waist. "We could use some time together, just us." She hesitated for a fraction of a second before smiling. "That sounds nice. Let me know when you get the days approved." Addison nodded, ignoring the slight twist in his gut at her lack of enthusiasm. "I'm going to shower." Under the hot water, Addison let his thoughts wander. They had built a good life together. The cooling of passion was normal after 10 years, wasn't it? Lauren was still the woman he had chosen. Ambitious, beautiful, social. The perfect surgeon's wife who knew how to work a charity gala and make the right connections. They were solid. Different from the early days, but solid. He believed that with the same conviction he brought to every diagnosis. And like some diagnoses, he would soon discover just how wrong he was. 3 days later, Addison's flight from Highport landed 2 hours early. The medical conference had ended sooner than expected when the keynote speaker fell ill. Now at 7 in the evening instead of 9, Addison found himself heading home to surprise his wife. He picked up Thai food from their favorite restaurant. Spicy basil chicken for him, pad Thai with extra lime for her, and a bottle of Pinot Noir to complete the impromptu date night. Maybe this was what they needed. Spontaneity, something to break their routine. When the elevator opened on their floor, Addison heard laughter echoing down the hallway. Lauren must have friends over. He almost turned back, not wanting to intrude, but decided against it. They were married. This was his home. Her friends were always perfectly civil to him. if a bit cool. As he approached their door, voices became clearer. He recognized Bethany's distinct laugh and Harper's slightly deeper tone alongside Lauren's. Addison balanced the food and wine in one arm as he reached for his keys. "Oh, please. He's never around anyway. I swear, sometimes I forget I'm even married." Lauren's voice carried through the door. Addison paused, hovering near the lock. "At least he's loaded," Bethany replied. "My ex is trying to get out of alimony again. Such a nightmare." "Money isn't everything," Lauren said. Addison's idea of excitement is talking about valve replacements over dinner. The women laughed, and Addison felt something cold settle in his chest, but what came next froze him entirely. "Oh, please, Addison. He's just my roommate. We barely even act like a couple anymore." More laughter, glasses clinking. "To roommates who pay the bills," Harper's voice, followed by the sound of wine glasses touching. Addison stood motionless, the food growing cold in his hands. Just a roommate. 10 years of marriage reduced to a roommate situation. He took a deep breath, slipped his key back in his pocket, and walked to the trash chute at the end of the hallway. He dropped the food inside, watching the white bags tumble into darkness. The wine he kept. He needed it tonight. Instead of going home, Addison took the elevator down to the garage and got back in his car. He drove to his office at the hospital, the one place where he always felt in control. At his desk, Addison opened the wine without bothering with a glass. He took a long drink straight from the bottle and stared at the framed photo of Lauren and him on their wedding day. Just a roommate. The words echoed in his mind. He tried to catalog when things had changed. Had he been so blind, so wrapped up in his work that he'd missed the death of his marriage? Addison took another drink. No, this wasn't on him. He worked hard, provided everything she could want. She never complained about the designer clothes, luxury vacations, or social status his position afforded her. He thought of the nights he'd come home late to find her already asleep, the weekends she spent with her friends instead of him, the way her eyes no longer lit up when he entered her room. Perhaps they had become roommates, but hearing her laugh about it with her friends cut deeper than any scalpel. Addison's phone buzzed with a text from Lauren. "Where are you? Thought you were getting in at 9. He stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Flight delayed. Don't wait up." The lie came easily, and that disturbed him almost as much as her words had. They had never lied to each other. At least he had never lied to her. Now he wondered what other lies existed between them. For a week, Addison observed Lauren with new eyes. He noticed how she angled away from him in bed, how her smile appeared forced when he tried to engage her in conversation, how her phone was always face down when he entered her room. "Let's go out tonight," he suggested on Friday morning, as they moved around each other in their kitchen. That new Italian place on Congress opened. "I made reservations." Lauren looked up from her avocado toast. "Tonight. I made plans with the girls." "Cancel them," Addison said, his voice firm but not harsh. "We haven't had a date night in weeks." She hesitated, then sighed. "Fine. What time?" 7. "I'll meet you there. I have a surgery that should wrap up by 6. Lauren nodded, already distracted by her phone. Addison performed a triple bypass that afternoon with mechanical precision, his mind compartmentalizing, as it always did during surgery. But as he closed the patient's chest, suturing layer by layer, his thoughts kept returning to his wife. He finished earlier than expected and decided to go home to change before dinner. As he turned his key in the lock, he heard the shower running. Good, Lauren was getting ready for their date. Addison loosened his tie and walked to the bedroom to change his clothes. Lauren's phone lay on the bed, and as he passed by, it lit up with a new message. He shouldn't look. They had boundaries, respect for each other's privacy. But the memory of just a roommate echoed in his mind. Before he could reconsider, Addison picked up the phone. The lock screen showed a message preview from Nolan. "Can't wait to see you again, babe. Last night was unforgettable." Addison stared at the words, reading them again and again until they burned into his brain. The shower continued to run, giving him time to process what he was seeing. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Not with last night, explicitly stated. Not with babe as the term of endearment. He set the phone down exactly as he'd found it and went to the closet. With methodical movements, he changed into a fresh suit. His hands didn't shake. His breathing remained steady. But inside, something fundamental had shifted. The shower stopped. Addison sat on the edge of the bed, waiting. Lauren emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, her hair wet around her shoulders. She startled when she saw him. "You scared me," she said, forcing a laugh. "I didn't hear you come in." "Clearly," Addison replied, his voice even. "How was your day?" She moved to her dresser, pulling out underwear and keeping her back to him. "Fine. Just got back from Pilates a little while ago." The lie slid off her tongue so easily that Addison almost admired her composure. Almost. "Interesting," he said. "I thought you had lunch with Bethany today." Lauren turned, clutching her clothes to her chest. "Oh, right. Yes, after Pilates." "And last night? What did you do last night while I was at that hospital board meeting?" Her eyes flicked to her phone on the bed, then back to him. The slightest tremor in her hands betrayed her. "Nothing. Stayed in. Watched that show on Netflix." Addison nodded slowly. "The one about the woman who lies to her husband." Her eyes narrowed. "What are you implying, Addison?" "I'm not implying anything." He stood, straightening his already perfect cuffs. "I'm giving you a chance to tell me the truth." "About what?" Her voice rose slightly. "God, you're being weird." Addison stepped closer. "Who's Nolan?" The color drained from Lauren's face. Her mouth opened, then closed. For once, she seemed at a loss for words. "I believe he texted you just now," Addison continued, his voice deadly calm. "Something about last night being unforgettable." "You went through my phone." Anger replaced her shock. "How dare you? I didn't go through anything. The message showed up while your phone was sitting on the bed." He tilted his head slightly. "Strange how you're more upset about me seeing the message than explaining why another man is texting my wife about an unforgettable night." Lauren's posture changed, her shoulders dropping as she switched tactics. "It's not what you think." "No." Addison's voice remained level. "What is it then?" "He's just a friend from Pilates class." "You take Pilates at a women-only studio." She swallowed. "A friend of a friend, then." "We had drinks with a group." He must have gotten the wrong idea. Addison stared at her, searching her face. The woman before him, his wife of 10 years, suddenly seemed like a stranger. How many lies had he believed? How many times had she taken him for a fool? "We have reservations at 7, he said finally. "I'll meet you there." Confusion crossed her face. "You still want to go to dinner?" "After accusing me of." "I haven't accused you of anything," Addison interrupted. "You've made your own accusations by lying. But yes, I still plan to honor our reservation." He turned and walked out of the bedroom, leaving her clutching her clothes, mouth still open in protest. He heard her call his name as he reached the front door, but he didn't stop. In the elevator, Addison leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. The calm that carried him through complex surgeries enveloped him now. He didn't feel rage or despair, only a cold, clear certainty. Something in him had snapped, but not in the way most might break. There would be no shouting, no pleading, no desperate attempts to save what was already lost. Addison Rivera didn't believe in second chances when it came to betrayal. He believed in calculated, precise responses, removing the disease completely rather than treating symptoms. And as the elevator descended, so did any remaining illusion of their marriage. By the time the doors opened to the lobby, Addison had already begun formulating his response, not with emotion, but with the same clinical detachment that made him an exceptional surgeon. Lauren had just become a problem to solve, and Addison never failed to find a solution. He walked out of their building into the warm Henford evening. He wouldn't be going to dinner, and he suspected neither would she. His phone buzzed with texts from Lauren, but he ignored them. Instead, he called his attorney. "Gregory, Addison Rivera, I need to speak with you immediately. It's about my marriage." The taste of betrayal was bitter on his tongue, but Addison was already thinking ahead to the sweet flavor of what would come next. Justice delivered with surgical precision. Addison sat across from Gregory Bennett in the attorney's wood-paneled office. Morning sunlight filtered through Venetian blinds, casting striped shadows across the mahogany desk between them. "Are you certain about this, Addison?" Gregory asked, tapping his gold pen against the yellow legal pad. 10 years is a long time to throw away without trying to fix things. Addison's face remained impassive. "There's nothing to fix. She betrayed me. Now I need to protect myself. Divorce is messy, painful." Gregory leaned forward. "Even with a prenup, she'll be entitled to. I'm not filing for divorce. Not yet." Addison's words were measured, precise. Gregory frowned. "What exactly are you planning?" "Nothing illegal." Addison held up a hand. "I just need to make some financial adjustments before she realizes what's happening. Can you help me or not?" The older attorney studied Addison's face before nodding slowly. "I can help, but I want you to think carefully about each step. Anger makes for poor decisions." "This isn't anger," Addison replied. "This is surgery, clean, precise removal of a cancer from my life." Gregory winced at the metaphor, but opened his laptop. "All right, let's start with the financials." Over the next hour, they created a roadmap for Addison's plan. By the time he left Gregory's office, the first phase was already in motion. At the hospital, Addison moved through his day with his usual efficiency. No one would guess that behind his calm exterior, calculations were constantly running. Not medical ones, but the precise dismantling of the life he'd shared with Lauren. Between surgeries, he called his bank and initiated the first step. "I'd like to freeze the joint accounts I share with my wife," he told the personal banking representative. "There's been some suspicious activity." "Of course, Dr. Rivera. We can place a temporary hold while we investigate. Would you like to speak with our fraud department?" "That won't be necessary yet. I'd also like to open a new individual account and transfer my direct deposits there." "We can certainly do that. May I ask what prompted these changes?" Addison's voice remained steady. "Let's just say I'm restructuring my finances." By the time he finished his last surgery, Addison had also transferred his investment portfolio to accounts solely in his name, removed Lauren as an authorized user on his primary credit cards, and initiated paperwork to remove his name from their apartment lease. The prenuptial agreement they'd signed made it clear that their finances remained separate, except for jointly acquired assets. The apartment wasn't one of them. It was a rental, and the lease could be modified. Addison then accessed their shared cloud storage. He began documenting everything, downloading text messages he'd found, photos from social events where Lauren stood too close to various men, financial records showing her excessive spending. Each file was meticulously labeled and organized. Lastly, he ordered a small camera from a security website. It would arrive tomorrow via overnight delivery. As darkness fell over Henford, Addison finally left his office and checked into a hotel downtown, not far from their apartment, but a world away from the life he had believed in just days ago. In his hotel room, Addison stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. His phone buzzed with text after text from Lauren, alternating between anger and pleading. He read each one without responding. The final text of the night read, "I miss you. Whatever you think happened, you're wrong. Please come home." Addison turned off his phone and went to bed. He slept soundly, dreamlessly, the sleep of a man who knows exactly what needs to be done. The next morning, Addison visited their apartment while Lauren was at her regular brunch with friends. He let himself in quietly, went straight to their living room, and installed a small camera behind a stack of design books on the shelf. The angle gave a clear view of the entire main living space, including the entrance to the bedroom hallway. He was about to leave when he noticed a wine glass on the coffee table, a glass that hadn't been washed from the night before. Next to it lay a man's watch, not his. Addison picked it up, examining the expensive timepiece, a Rolex Submariner. He set it back exactly where he'd found it and left the apartment without disturbing anything else. In the elevator down, Addison connected to the camera feed on his phone. The image was clear, the audio crisp. Now he would have proof. Not that he needed it for himself, but for what would come next. That night, the camera captured Lauren entering the apartment with a tall, well-dressed man with salt and pepper hair. Addison watched from his hotel room as they opened wine, laughed, and eventually disappeared into the bedroom. Nolan Harlow. Addison recognized him from charity events, a restaurateur who owned 3 upscale establishments in Henford, known for his wealth, his charm, and his tendency to date married women. Addison watched without expression as they emerged an hour later, Lauren wrapped in a silk robe, Nolan buttoning his shirt. Their conversation came through the camera's microphone with perfect clarity. "When will you tell him?" Nolan asked, pulling Lauren against him. She sighed, resting her head on his chest. "I don't know. He's not responding to my calls or texts. I think he suspects something." "Good. Makes it easier to end things." Nolan kissed her neck. "You said yourself he's more like a roommate than a husband." Lauren laughed softly. "True, but he's also not the type to just walk away from what's his. And technically, I'm still his. Not for long." Nolan's hand slid inside her robe. "I want you moved in by the end of the month." "That's fast. I'm not known for my patience." Nolan checked his watch. The same Rolex Addison had seen earlier. "I have to go. Early meeting with investors tomorrow. Will you call me?" Lauren's voice had a needy edge Addison had never heard before. "Of course." Nolan kissed her again, more deeply this time. "This weekend, my place. Pack a bag." After Nolan left, Addison watched as Lauren poured another glass of wine and called someone. He turned up the volume. "Bethany, it's me. Addison still hasn't come home." "No, I'm with Nolan now." I know. It's complicated. Of course I still want Addison's money, but Nolan has plenty too, and he's much more fun." Addison turned off the feed. He had everything he needed. Friday evening, Addison sat in his car across the street from Lauren's favorite restaurant, watching as she emerged with Bethany and Harper. The women hugged goodbye in the parking lot. Lauren got into her Mercedes and drove off. Addison followed at a safe distance. Instead of heading home, Lauren drove north toward the affluent Ridgecrest Hills area. The winding roads led to increasingly large homes set back from the street behind gates and hedges. She finally turned into a driveway leading to a modern house with clean lines and walls of glass. The gate opened automatically. She clearly had the code. Addison parked on the street, keeping his headlights off. From this vantage point, he could see Lauren exit her car and walk to the front door. Before she could ring the bell, it opened. Nolan stood there, drink in hand. The kiss they shared wasn't casual or quick. It was passionate, familiar, the kiss of lovers who knew each other well. Addison took out his phone and recorded a short video as they disappeared inside, the door closing behind them. He sat there for several minutes, the final pieces clicking in his mind. This wasn't just an affair. This was a full exit strategy. Lauren was moving from one provider to the next, ensuring she had a safe landing before cutting ties completely. His phone buzzed with a text from her. "Out with the girls. Don't wait up if you decide to come home." The casual lie made him laugh softly. Even now, she couldn't help herself. Addison started his car and drove back to the hotel. Tonight would be his last night there. Tomorrow, he would move into a new place, a temporary apartment until he found something permanent. And then the real work would begin. In his hotel room, Addison spread his evidence across the desk. Photos, videos, financial records, text messages, all telling the same story. Lauren had betrayed him completely, and not just with her body. She'd made him a joke to her friends, planned her escape while enjoying the lifestyle he provided, and lied without hesitation or remorse. Addison picked up his phone and called Gregory. "It's worse than I thought," he said when the attorney answered. "How much worse?" "She's planning to leave me for another man. She's sleeping with him in our bed. She's discussing how to get the most money from me." Gregory sighed heavily. "Do you have proof?" "Everything. Video, audio, text messages." "Then let's file for divorce immediately, with the prenup and this evidence." "No." Addison's voice was firm. "Not yet." "Addison, what are you planning?" "Nothing you need to worry about. I just need to make sure she faces consequences beyond just a legal separation." "Be careful," Gregory warned. "Emotions can." "This isn't emotional." Addison cut him off. "This is strategic. I need to know she regrets what she did, that she understands exactly what she threw away." A pause. "I can't advise that approach." "You don't need to advise it. Just be ready when I call for the divorce paperwork." After hanging up, Addison turned back to the evidence he had collected. With methodical precision, he organized it all into digital folders. Then he sat at his laptop and began crafting emails. The first one went to Lauren's mother, Marilyn, a conservative woman from old Yorkfield money who had never fully approved of Lauren's lifestyle, but had accepted Addison as a stabilizing influence. The email was simple, respectful, and devastating. "Marilyn, I've always valued your wisdom and discretion. Before you hear rumors or half-truths, I wanted you to understand why Lauren and I are separating. The attached video was taken yesterday. The man is Nolan Harlow, a local restaurateur. According to Lauren, this has been ongoing for some time. I'm deeply sorry to share this with you, but I believe you deserve the truth. Respectfully, Addison." The second email was addressed to Nolan's business partners, men and women Addison had met at charity functions over the years. "As fellow business owners in Henford, I feel obligated to share some concerning information about Nolan Harlow's ethics and judgment. The attached documentation shows a pattern of pursuing married women, including my wife, Lauren Rivera. While personal relationships are typically private matters, this behavior represents a significant liability risk to your restaurant group and brand reputation. I've consulted several attorneys who believe your partnership agreement likely contains morality clauses that would be relevant. I'm providing this information as a professional courtesy before taking more formal actions. Dr. Addison Rivera." The third set of emails went to every woman in Lauren's social circle, 23 in total. Each received the same message. "I apologize for this uncomfortable message. My wife, Lauren, is having an affair with Nolan Harlow. If your husband or partner has spent time alone with Nolan, you may want to ask questions about their interactions with Lauren as well. I have confirmation that she has discussed several of your husbands with Nolan in unflattering ways. I wanted you to know before these conversations become public. Addison Rivera." With each email drafted, Addison paused, reviewing the potential consequences. This would destroy Lauren's social standing, her relationship with her mother, and possibly her future with Nolan if his business partners pressured him to end things. It was ruthless, calculated, and exactly what she deserved. Addison scheduled the emails to send at 9 a.m. the next day, precisely when Lauren would be waking up in Nolan's bed. The sky was still dark when Addison checked out of the hotel. He drove to the hospital, arriving before sunrise to prep for an early surgery. The operating room was his sanctuary, the one place where everything still made sense, where his control was absolute. At 8:30 a.m., as he scrubbed for surgery, Addison knew the emails would send in 30 minutes. By the time he finished this valve replacement, Lauren's world would be crumbling. He felt no anxiety, no regret, only a calm certainty that justice was imminent. The surgery went flawlessly. When Addison emerged 4 hours later, his phone was filled with notifications. He ignored them until he had completed his post-op notes and spoken with the patient's family. Finally, in his office with the door closed, Addison began going through the messages. Marilyn had called 8 times. Nolan Harlow had called twice and sent a text. "We need to talk. This is completely unprofessional." Gregory had called. "Whatever you did, it's creating waves. Call me ASAP." And Lauren, 37 missed calls, 16 text messages, each more desperate than the last. "What have you done? My mother called me in tears. How could you do this to me? Nolan's partners are threatening to buy him out. All my friends are blocking me. Answer your phone. You've ruined EVER. Please stop this. I'm sorry, okay? Is that what you want to hear?" The last text, sent just minutes ago. "I'm at the apartment. We need to talk. Please." Addison checked the time. It was just past noon. He had no more surgery scheduled today. It was time to face her. When Addison arrived at the apartment, Lauren flung the door open before he could use his key. Her mascara had created dark streaks down her face. Her hair, usually perfectly styled, hung limp around her shoulders. "How could you?" she screamed the moment he stepped inside. "How could you? You sent videos to my mother." Addison closed the door behind him. "I simply shared the truth." "The truth?" She laughed hysterically. "You call destroying my life the truth. Bethany won't speak to me. Harper blocked my number. And Nolan's business partners are demanding he end things with me. Actions have consequences, Lauren." She slapped him, the sound cracking through the apartment. Addison didn't flinch. He didn't touch his reddening cheek. He simply stared at her, his eyes cold. "Feel better?" "No." Tears streamed down her face. "Nothing is better. You've ruined everything." "I ruined nothing." His voice remained calm. "You did that when you decided I was just a roommate. When you brought another man into our bed. When you lied repeatedly to my face. It was just physical." Lauren's voice broke. "It didn't mean anything." "Then you've lost everything for nothing." How tragic. He watched her collapse onto the couch, sobbing. "What do you want from me?" she cried. "An apology?" "Fine. I'm sorry. I made a mistake." "A mistake?" Addison raised an eyebrow. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, buying the wrong gift, carrying on an affair, discussing how to take my money, making me a joke to your friends. Those aren't mistakes. They're choices. So this is revenge, exposing me to everyone I know." "No, Lauren. This is consequences. There's a difference." Addison walked to the kitchen and poured himself a glass of water. "And we're just getting started." She looked up, fear replacing anger in her eyes. "What do you mean?" "Check your credit cards." He took a sip of water. "Try to buy something expensive." Lauren reached for her purse, pulling out her wallet. She fumbled for her phone, checking her banking app. Her face went pale. "What did you do?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "I removed myself from our joint accounts, canceled your authorized user status on my credit cards, transferred my assets to accounts you can't access." Addison set his glass down. "The prenup you signed is quite clear about infidelity. You can't just cut me off." "I already have." He gestured around the apartment. "Enjoy our home while you can. I've removed myself from the lease. It's all yours now, along with a $4,500 monthly rent." Lauren's mouth opened and closed. "I can't. I don't have income." Addison finished for her. "Yes, that's always been a problem. All those shopping trips, spa days, and lunches with friends, but no actual career. You wanted me to be available for your hospital events. You liked having a wife who could drop everything to attend functions, and you liked the lifestyle that provided. We all make choices, Lauren." He walked toward the door. "I've made mine." She jumped up, grabbing his arm. "Wait, you can't just leave me with nothing. 10 years, Addison. 10 years of marriage has to be worth something." Addison looked down at her hand until she released his arm. "It was worth everything to me. That's why the price for betraying it is so high." He opened the door. "I'll be sending movers for my personal belongings next week. I suggest you start looking for more affordable housing." As the door closed behind him, Addison heard something crash against it, likely a vase or glass thrown in fury. He walked calmly to the elevator, his steps measured and unhurried. In the parking garage, his phone buzzed with a call from Nolan Harlow. Addison answered. "Dr. Rivera." "Nolan Harlow here," came the tight voice of controlled anger. "I think we need to discuss your unprofessional behavior." "Mr. Harlow." Addison kept his tone neutral as he got into his car. "I disagree. There's nothing to discuss. You've interfered with my business relationships, made accusations. I shared factual information, documented with evidence," Addison corrected. "If your partners find that problematic, perhaps you should examine your choices rather than my response to them." "Look," Nolan's voice shifted to a more conciliatory tone. "I understand you're upset about Lauren, but this is between the three of us, not my business associates. You made it my business when you slept with my wife in my bed." Addison started his car. "As for Lauren, she's all yours now. I hope you're prepared to support her financially. She has expensive tastes." A pause. "What exactly does that mean?" "It means her credit cards are canceled, and she can't afford the apartment. I assume, since you're so intimately involved, you'll be helping her out." "That's not my responsibility," Nolan said quickly. "Our relationship isn't at that stage." Addison smiled coldly, though Nolan couldn't see it. "No, strange. She mentioned moving in with you by the end of the month, something about picking out furniture together." Another pause, longer this time. "She said that, among other things. I have it all recorded, if you'd like to hear it." Addison checked his watch. "Now if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with my realtor. I'm buying a new place, something waterfront, I think." He ended the call before Nolan could respond. As Addison drove away from the apartment building, away from 10 years of memories and betrayal, he felt neither satisfaction nor relief, only the calm certainty of a surgeon who had successfully removed the cancer. Phase 1 was complete. The social destruction had begun. Next would come financial collapse, and after that, his own triumph. Addison smiled as he drove toward his new future, a future in which Lauren was nothing more than a cautionary tale, a reminder of why he would never allow himself to be vulnerable again. A week passed after Addison's confrontation with Lauren. He had moved into a sleek, serviced apartment downtown while hunting for a permanent residence. The temporary space was minimalist, all glass, steel, and neutral tones, but it suited him. No memories, no attachments, just clean lines and functional spaces, like an operating room. Addison sat at the breakfast bar reviewing property listings on his tablet. His phone buzzed with a text from Gregory. "Lauren called the office again, demanding to speak with you about financial support." Addison didn't bother responding. Gregory knew the plan. No communication except through attorneys, no concessions, no mercy. His phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. Normally, he would ignore it, but something made him answer. "Dr. Rivera." His voice was neutral, professional. Addison, a woman's voice, familiar but unexpected. "It's Marilyn." Addison straightened in his chair. "Marilyn, this is a surprise. For me as well." Her accent was more pronounced than usual, a sign of stress. "I never thought I'd be calling my son-in-law about something like this." "Ex-son-in-law. Soon," Addison corrected gently. "I assume Lauren has spoken with you." "She has." Marilyn paused. "And I've seen what you sent me. I can't say I approve of your methods, Addison." "I understand. But I can't say I blame you either." Her voice hardened slightly. "What she did was inexcusable. That's not how I raise her." Addison remained silent, waiting. "She showed up at my house last night," Marilyn continued, crying, saying you'd cut her off completely, that she has no money, nowhere to live. The apartment is still in her name. She's welcome to stay there as long as she can pay the rent, which she can't. Marilyn sighed heavily. "What exactly are you hoping to accomplish? She's still legally your wife. For now. And that's your plan. Financial ruin followed by divorce. Addison considered his words carefully. My plan is consequences, Marilyn. For 10 years, Lauren enjoyed the benefits of being my wife, while treating our marriage like a joke. Now she'll experience the consequences of that choice. A long pause followed. You were always a hard man, Addison. Precise, uncompromising. It's what made you a brilliant surgeon. But I never thought you'd be cruel. This isn't cruelty. It's justice. Perhaps. Another sigh. She asked me for money to cover the rent until she figures things out. Did you give it to her? No, Marilyn said matter-of-factly. She made her bed, as my mother would say. I told her she needs to find a job, an apartment she can afford, and a good attorney, not necessarily in that order. Despite everything, Addison felt a spark of respect for the older woman. That was unexpected. I may not approve of how you're handling this, but I raised my daughter to stand on her own 2 feet. She's forgotten that somewhere along the way. A pause. I just wanted you to know I'm not interfering in whatever happens next. Thank you, Marilyn. Don't thank me. I'm not doing it for you. Her voice softened slightly. I always thought you were good for her. I was wrong about that, clearly. But maybe this will be good for her in a different way. After ending the call, Addison stared out the window at the Henford skyline. Marilyn's words echoed in his mind. He had never thought of himself as cruel before. But perhaps that was exactly what he had become. No, this wasn't cruelty. This was a necessary excision of a cancer that had been growing in his life for years. Clean, precise removal. The following morning, Addison received an email from the property management company that handled their apartment building. The subject line read, Urgent, rent payment overdue. He scanned the contents. Lauren had failed to pay rent for the current month, which was now 5 days overdue. Management was reaching out to him as the previous co-signer of the lease, requesting intervention before formal eviction proceedings began. Addison forwarded the email to Gregory with a brief note. No intervention. Let the process proceed. Gregory's response came quickly. Are you sure? This will complicate the divorce. Addison typed back. I'm sure. She needs to understand what life costs. As he sent the reply, his phone rang. Lauren. He declined the call, but she immediately called back. After the 4th attempt, he finally answered. What? They're going to evict me. Her voice was shrill with panic. Management says I have 3 days to pay or they'll start proceedings. That's how rent works, Addison replied calmly. You pay it, or you can't stay. I can't come up with $4,500 in 3 days. That sounds like a problem you need to solve. Addison. Her voice dropped, becoming soft, pleading. Please. I know I hurt you. I know what I did was wrong. But don't do this to me. Do what exactly? Hold you accountable. Expect you to live within your means. You know I don't have a job. You know I can't afford this place on my own. A sob caught in her throat. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my concern anymore. Where's Nolan? I thought you were moving in with him. Silence stretched for several seconds. Then, in a small voice, he doesn't want that anymore. How surprising, Addison said, not surprised at all. The prospect of financially supporting you wasn't as appealing as sleeping with you. You ruined that too. Anger replaced her pleading tone. You sent those emails to his partners. They'd been pressuring him to end things with me. I merely provided information. They made their own decisions. Addison checked his watch. I have a meeting in 10 minutes. Is there anything else? Yes. Help me with the rent, just until I can figure something out. Please, Addison, I'll sign whatever you want for the divorce. Just don't make me homeless. Addison considered this. A quick resolution to the divorce would be beneficial. If I pay this month's rent, you'll sign uncontested divorce papers with no further financial claims. Yes, hope entered her voice. Yes, I promise. I'll have Gregory draw up the papers. Once they're signed, I'll cover this month's rent. That gives you 30 days to find another living arrangement. Thank you, she breathed. Lauren, save it. He cut her off. This isn't forgiveness or reconciliation. It's a business transaction. Nothing more. After ending the call, Addison texted Gregory, "Prepare uncontested divorce papers. Lauren will sign in exchange for 1 month's rent payment. No alimony, no further financial obligations." Gregory responded immediately, "Smart move. I'll have them ready by tomorrow." Addison set down his phone and returned to the property listings. He had an appointment to view a penthouse in a gated community that afternoon. It was time to rebuild his life. Better, stronger, and without the weakness of trust. 3 days later, with the divorce papers signed and the rent paid, Addison received a text from Lauren. "Thank you for the rent. I'm staying with Bethany until I find a place I can afford." He didn't respond. Let her think Bethany was still her friend. Reality would hit soon enough. That evening, as Addison settled into his hotel room after another day of surgery, his phone rang. Another unfamiliar number. "Dr. Rivera," he answered. "Addison, it's Bethany." The voice was tense, uncomfortable. Lauren's friend. Addison waited, saying nothing. "Look, I don't want to get involved in whatever's happening between you two, but she showed up at my door with 3 suitcases, saying she's staying with me." Bethany's words came in a rush. "I let her crash on my couch for 1 night, but I can't have her living here. My boyfriend is moving in next week. What would you like me to do about that?" Addison asked, his tone neutral. "Can't you? I don't know. Help her find a place. She's a mess. She says you've cut her off completely." "That's correct. We're divorced." "Already?" That was fast. When there's clear evidence of infidelity and a solid prenuptial agreement, these things can move quickly. Addison sat on the edge of the bed. "As for her living situation, that's not my concern anymore." "But, Bethany," Addison cut her off. "Weren't you the one who laughed when Lauren called me just a roommate? When she joked about our marriage being a sham?" Silence. "I thought so." Addison's voice remained calm. "You encouraged her behavior, were her confidant while she betrayed me, and now you're calling me for help." "I didn't know it had gone that far," Bethany protested weakly. "I thought it was just talk." "It's never just talk." Addison stood up and walked to the window. "Tell Lauren she needs to leave your apartment. Tell her the truth, that you don't want her there." That seems harsh. Reality often is. Addison ended the call without another word. He looked out at the Henford skyline, lights twinkling in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Lauren was realizing that her friends weren't really friends at all, that the social circle she had cultivated was built on gossip and appearances, not loyalty or support. It was a hard lesson, but necessary. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Nolan. We need to talk about Lauren. She's becoming a problem." Addison deleted the message without responding. Nolan's problems were no longer his concern either. The next morning, Addison signed the papers for his new penthouse. It was everything he wanted: sleek, modern, secure, and completely new. No ghosts, no memories, just clean lines and open space, a place to start over. As he toured the space with a realtor, his phone buzzed continuously with messages from Lauren. He ignored them all. "This is perfect," he told the realtor, standing in the master bedroom with its stunning view of the lake. "When can I move in?" "We can have the paperwork finalized by the end of the week," she replied with a practiced smile. "It helps that you're paying cash." Addison nodded. "I'll arrange for furniture delivery next Monday." The realtor handed him the preliminary paperwork. "Congratulations, Dr. Rivera. This is one of our most exclusive properties." As he signed the documents, Addison felt something settle inside him. This was the first step toward his new life, a life built on his terms, without compromise or weakness. 1 month later, Addison's new life had taken shape. The penthouse was furnished with sleek, modern pieces, nothing that reminded him of the apartment he had shared with Lauren. His schedule was fuller than ever, with complex surgeries that challenged his skills and research projects that energized his mind. And then there was Morgan. He had met her at a hospital fundraiser, a sharp-eyed attorney who specialized in medical malpractice defense. She had approached him after his speech, offering a business card and a critique of his position on liability reform that was both insightful and challenging. Their first dinner had been purely professional. The second, less so. By the third, they had established a connection based on mutual respect and shared ambition. Unlike Lauren, Morgan didn't need Addison's success to define her. She had her own. She understood his dedication to his work because she shared the same drive. And she found his ruthless handling of Lauren not shocking or disturbing, but practical. "You removed a threat," she'd said when he explained the situation. "Clean, precise excision. I'd have done the same." Now, as Addison prepared for another charity gala, this one for heart disease research, he found himself looking forward to having Morgan on his arm. She had texted him earlier, "Meeting running late. We'll meet you there. Save me a glass of that overpriced champagne." Addison smiled at the message as he adjusted his bow tie. Their relationship was still new, still developing, but it felt right in a way his marriage to Lauren never had. There was no pretense, no hidden agenda, just two ambitious people who appreciated each other's strengths. The event was held at the Crown Hotel downtown. The ballroom was transformed with soft lighting and elegant floral arrangements. Addison moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands, accepting congratulations on his recent research publication, and making the connections that kept the hospital's donation pipeline flowing. "Dr. Rivera, your paper on valve replacement techniques was revolutionary," said the chief of surgery, clapping him on the shoulder. "The hospital board is very pleased with the attention it's bringing to our cardiac program." "Thank you, Richard." Addison nodded, accepting the praise as his due. "The follow-up study is already showing promising results." "Excellent, excellent." Richard lowered his voice. "And on a personal note, I'm glad to see you moving forward after everything with Lauren." Addison's expression didn't change. "Life continues." "Indeed it does." Richard glanced over Addison's shoulder. "And speaking of moving forward, is that Morgan Mitchell on your arm these days? Impressive woman." "She is." Addison turned to see Morgan entering the ballroom, striking in a simple black dress that spoke of confidence rather than a need for attention. "If you'll excuse me." He crossed the room to meet her, feeling a sense of pride as heads turned to watch her progress. Unlike Lauren, who demanded attention, Morgan commanded it naturally. "Sorry I'm late," she said, accepting the champagne flute he offered. The deposition ran long. "Worth the wait," Addison replied. "You look stunning. Flattery will get you everywhere." She smiled, a quick flash of warmth that was genuine rather than practiced. "How are the sharks circling tonight?" "The usual feeding frenzy," Addison said, guiding her toward a less crowded area near the windows. "Donors looking for recognition, doctors seeking funding." "And where does that leave us?" "Observing from a safe distance," Addison replied. "Until it's time to make our strategic moves." Morgan laughed softly. "You really do approach everything like surgery, don't you?" "It's proven effective. I can't argue with results." She took a sip of champagne, then froze. Her eyes focused on something across the room. "Addison, don't turn around yet, but your ex-wife just walked in." Addison didn't react outwardly, but inwardly he felt a flicker of surprise. Lauren shouldn't have been invited. The hospital staff knew about their divorce, and the social circles that received these invitations were well aware of the scandal. "She looks different," Morgan continued, observing discreetly. "Thinner, less polished." "I don't care how she looks," Addison said flatly. "Of course not," Morgan murmured. "But she's heading this way. So prepare yourself." Addison turned slowly, his face a mask of indifference. And there was Lauren, moving through the crowd toward them. Morgan was right. She looked different. The designer dress she wore was one he recognized from years ago, slightly outdated now. Her makeup couldn't quite hide the shadows under her eyes, and her hair lacked its usual perfect styling. She stopped in front of them, clutching a glass of wine like a lifeline. "Addison," she whispered, barely more than a breath. "Lauren." He kept his voice neutral. "I'm surprised to see you here. I still have friends on the committee." Her gaze shifted to Morgan, then back to him. "Can we talk? Privately?" "I'm afraid that's not possible," Addison said smoothly. "I'm here with my date, and we have people to speak with." "It will only take a minute." A note of desperation edged Lauren's voice. "Please." Morgan touched his arm lightly. "I'll go say hello to Judge Merrick. Take your minute." Her eyes conveyed understanding. This wasn't jealousy or insecurity, just practical efficiency. As Morgan walked away, Addison turned his full attention to Lauren. 60 seconds. Lauren swallowed hard. "I need help, Addison. I can't find a job. No one in our social circle will hire me. The scandal made sure of that." "That's unfortunate." "Unfortunate." Her voice rose slightly before she controlled it, glancing around so they wouldn't draw attention. "I'm about to be homeless. Bethany is kicking me out for good. Nolan won't even take my calls. What exactly do you expect me to do about this?" Addison asked, his tone clinical, as if discussing a patient's non-critical symptoms. "I don't know, Lauren. What do you expect me to do?" I don't know." Frustration broke through her composure. "Something. Anything. You destroyed my life, Addison." "No, Lauren. You destroyed your life when you betrayed our marriage." He checked his watch. "Your time is up. I suggest looking for employment outside of Henford. A fresh start somewhere people don't know your history." He turned to walk away, but her next words stopped him. "Addison, I messed up. Can we talk? Really talk? Not here, but somewhere private, please." Addison turned back slowly. In her eyes, he saw a glimmer of hope that perhaps there was still something to salvage, some way back to the life she had thrown away. He took a sip of his whiskey, letting the moment stretch between them. Then he smirked, a cold expression that had never been directed at her during their marriage. "Oh, Lauren, we were just roommates, remember?" The hope in her eyes died, replaced by understanding. This was his final revenge, throwing her own words back at her when she was at her lowest. Without waiting for her response, Addison walked away, moving smoothly through the crowd to rejoin Morgan. He didn't look back to see Lauren's reaction. He didn't need to. "Everything okay?" Morgan asked as he approached. "Perfect," Addison replied, taking her hand. "Shall we make those strategic moves now?" Morgan smiled, recognizing the shift in his mood. "Lead the way, Doctor." As they circulated through the gala, Addison felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The final confrontation with Lauren had provided the closure he needed. She had been reduced to exactly what she deserved, a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens when you betray someone who values loyalty above all else. Later that night, Addison and Morgan stood on the balcony of his penthouse, overlooking the glittering city below. The gala had been a success. Donations secured, connections strengthened, and Addison's position as a leading figure in Henford's medical community firmly established. "Your ex-wife left right after your conversation," Morgan noted, sipping her wine. "Quite the exit. She nearly knocked over a waiter on her way out." "I'm not surprised." Addison leaned against the railing. She always did have a flair for drama. What did she want? Help. Money. A way back to the life she had. He shrugged slightly. "The usual." Morgan studied his face. "And you refused?" "Of course." "Good." She set down her glass on the small table between them. "Weakness invites exploitation. You were right to cut her off completely." Addison nodded, appreciating her understanding. Lauren had always questioned his dedication, his focus. Morgan embraced it. "Your approach to the divorce was remarkably efficient. she continued. Most men would have dragged it out, fueled by emotion rather than strategy. Emotion clouds judgment. Addison replied. I preferred clarity. And now how do you feel, seeing her reduced to begging at charity events? Addison considered the question. I feel nothing. She's no longer relevant to my life. The perfect surgical outcome, Morgan said with a smile. Complete excision of the diseased tissue, with no lasting impact on the healthy parts. Precisely. His phone buzzed with a text. Addison glanced at it. Gregory sending a brief update. Judge signed the final property division today. All assets officially separated. Congratulations. Addison showed Morgan the message. She raised her glass in a toast. To clean breaks and new beginnings. He picked up his own glass, clinking it against hers, to clarity. As they moved inside, Addison took one last look at the Henford skyline. Somewhere out there, Lauren was facing the ruins of the life she had taken for granted. No money, no home, no friends, no lover, just the consequences of her own choices. And Addison, he was thriving. His practice had expanded, with patients traveling from across the country to seek his surgical expertise. His research was receiving national recognition, with talks of a prestigious award in the coming year. His new home reflected his success, exclusive, secure, and impressive without being ostentatious. And with Morgan, he had found a partner who understood him, challenged him, and appreciated his ruthless efficiency instead of trying to soften it. Addison closed the balcony door, shutting out the night. The past was finally and completely behind him. He had excised it with surgical precision, leaving no trace of infection that might spread to his new life. Lauren had called him just a roommate, reducing their marriage to a transaction of convenience. Now she understood the true cost of those words, and Addison Rivera walked away victorious, untouchable, and completely free. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.